Good morning, everyone, and thanks for being here today. And we have a few updates for you. First, on our heating system efforts, we've heard back from about half of the 1,000 we surveyed due to reported damage to the heating system, with about 50% of them reporting their systems are still not working. The next step of this process is to connect those who need help with repairs with technicians. So we're sharing our list of those in need with both the Fuel Dealers Association and Efficiency Vermont, who have already begun reaching out to offer finding someone to do the actual work. As Efficiency Vermont outlined last week, they also have financial assistance available, and they're working with homeowners to connect them to the resources as well. To make sure we reach as many impacted Vermonters as possible, a team at the tax department has offered to help and started making direct calls to those who did not answer the email survey. Again, if you know someone who still needs their system repaired after flooding, please ask them to call my office at 802-828-3333 if they haven't completed the survey. Next, we'll have an update on the Business Assistance Program, BGAP, from Commissioner Goldstein, following the changes we made last week. As a reminder, we removed the cap and increased the grant to 30% of the damage for most. And for those who already applied or received their grant, they don't need to do it again. You will automatically receive another check if you qualify for more. And the program is not closed to new applicants, so you can still apply if you haven't already. Then, Deputy Commissioner Batesy will give an update on debris removal, including work we're doing with municipalities and their stormwater systems. There's still a lot of work to do, and as we've discussed before, cleaning out storm drains will be critical before spring to prevent potential flooding that comes with snowmelt. Lastly, General Roy will give an update on some of the headlines for FEMA aid. If you haven't already applied for individual assistance and you suffered damage in an eligible county, there's no reason not to. I know there's still maybe many out there who never bothered to put in a claim because you were concerned you were taking money away from someone who needed it more. But that's not how it works. In fact, leadership in Congress did the right thing by coming together, avoiding a government shutdown, and replenishing the disaster relief fund at a record level. So there's no reason not to apply and get this financial assistance. Again, General Roy will give us more in a few minutes, but now I'll turn it over to Commissioner Goldstein.
Governor, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to update everyone on the Business Emergency Gap Assistance Program, or as we call it, BGAP. As a reminder, that $20 million program came out in August, and it was meant to help businesses, nonprofits, and landlords recover from physical damage that they suffered during the summer floods. We're very motivated by the fact that this is helping businesses reopen, it's helping them recover, employees coming back to work, customers being served, tenants being served. To give you an idea on the numbers, we've got 502 successfully completed applications in the system. 335 of them have been approved for a BGAP grant. 167 are still under review. The average BGAP award is now $22,424, and if you remember several weeks ago, it was as low as $13,000. So you were definitely seeing the results of the increase in the grant award calculation. There's $8.1 million that have been committed so far. And again, the difference from the last time I reported out, it was about $6 million committed. So we are seeing the differences. In the applications, organizations are reporting over $150 million in total damages, and $124 million is uncovered. and that's how we're calculating awards, is on that uncovered damage. We just started paying out the increase for people who were in queue to be reviewed. So just this week, I've seen some award approvals for area businesses, especially Montpelier restaurants as an example. Prior to the new calculation, they would have received $20,000. They are getting six-figure checks. So the team and I were very motivated by the fact that this is really having an impact. It's been encouraging to hear about the increased amounts. For those who already received payment in the old formula, we will start sending supplemental checks next week. We'd also like to remind organizations, we have about 100 incomplete applications, and we've sent a variety of messages over the last several weeks about what is wrong with the application, why it's incomplete. But if there's any misunderstanding or lack of clarity, please contact us at accd.biz floodgrant@vermont.gov, and we will reach out and connect with you to take you through the application and what is missing or what is incomplete so that we could serve as many people as possible. We want to hear from you and work with you so that as many as possible benefit from the program. Thank you. I'm now going to pass it to Deputy Commissioner Batesy.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dan Batesy. I'm the Deputy Commissioner of Public Safety. I've been asked to give you a brief overview of the debris removal process. The damage of the July flood created an unprecedented challenge associated with debris. When the waters receded and our citizens literally dug out, we were left with mud and silt and construction debris from flood-damaged homes and businesses, and a variety of trash and organic material that washed away and was deposited in different locations by the floodwaters. From the early impact assessments, it was very clear that the debris presented a health and safety hazard and needed to be removed immediately. We should start by recognizing the outstanding work that local municipalities did to remove debris. It was their crews that did the lion's share of this work. They logged countless hours to meet the extraordinary challenges of the debris in their communities, and oftentimes this work was, was unrecognized. So we want to make sure that we recognize them this morning. However, it became clear that those teams needed some assistance right off the bat, and for that reason, from the start of the Declaration of Emergency, we convened a task force at the State Emergency Operations Center. And this task force team represented a diverse mix of the state enterprise. The team represented Vermont Emergency Management, the Agency of Transportation, the Agency of Natural Resources, the Agency of Digital Services, among several others. And we really had two functions: find the debris and remove the debris. To find the debris, we first turned to the local emergency managers and town officials. They identified areas of need and specific requests for assistance. The task force took in over 300 individual requests for help. We also recognized that there were more challenging areas of need, such as less populated rural areas, and also citizens that required a certain degree of particular help. For that, we turned to several emergency medical services across the state, especially those who helped us during the pandemic, and we knew had some of the capacity that we could utilize. In particular, Rescue Inc. in Brattleboro, Waterbury Ambulance, Middlebury EMS, Regional Ambulance in Rutland, and Glover Ambulance all became scout teams for the State Emergency Operations Center to help us find those areas of need. These teams used their close connections to the community to work with citizens and connect resources like volunteer groups and volunteer efforts to help citizens navigate some of the debris removal process. We also use these teams to drive literally hundreds of miles of our waterway to help us scout problems with debris at bridges and culverts. We'd like to extend sincere appreciation for all the work that they did. All of this information and the intelligence that we received on debris was routed to a central spreadsheet managed by the Agency of Natural Resources. From there, they assigned removal assets from a variety of different sources. To manage the initial large-scale debris piles, and you can imagine those are the ones in Montpelier and Barry, the big piles, we used a pre-contracted vendor. These vendors were contracted with the State Emergency Management Plan prior to the flood. Ceres and Tetra Tech were the two that we used. They service communities throughout Vermont and carted over 5,000 tons of debris. We also added the Agency of Transportation Resources, led by their flagship truck nicknamed the Bounty, as in the quicker picker-upper. AOT Resource also logged hundreds of miles and moved many tons of construction debris and vegetative matter. Their work is ongoing and will continue for a while. I'll be glad to share some specific numbers around the debris that they've moved, that would be helpful later. The task force also identified some unique challenges with debris, including flood debris on private property, as the governor mentioned, clogged storm drains in communities, and also debris within the channels of the river. Right now, we're working on a variety of different solutions, including working with local municipalities. On the storm drain issue, what we're trying to do is identify those communities who need some help. Many communities are able to manage the situation themselves. Some have their own vac trucks. But when they don't, we have contracts with vendors who can aid their assistance. So if they're identifying, and we're working with them with our emergency managers to help identify those areas of need. In fact, today, the Agency of Natural Resources and FEMA are also out on a bit of a field trip. They're visiting a variety of river sites to help identify debris challenges there. The goal is to develop a plan based upon our river engineers' recommendations to ensure that the debris problems of today don't become problems in the spring when we have the ice out. As of this morning, we've brought our original list of over 350 identified debris sites down to about 11. Although admittedly that number is dynamic, it changes all the time. We will add more in the future. We still have some unique challenges like large washed out culverts and river issues that I just spoke about, but the task force is working on the creative solutions that we need. To date, we've moved 12,010,000 pounds of flood-related debris and 1,987 cubic yards of vegetative debris. That's not including the work of local municipalities. For all this success, however, we know there are ongoing challenges. Towns and cities have had their hands full for a very long time. There are also homeowners that are still in need of assistance or waiting for FEMA reimbursement before they begin their renovations. So this means that our work will continue. If there are debris-related concerns, we urge citizens to contact their local municipalities first. They, most of the time, have resources. If those municipalities need additional assistance, they can contact us through their local emergency managers at the State Emergency Operations Center, and we can extend some help. Be happy to answer your questions later, but thank you. I'll turn it over to General Roy.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. The FEMA staff continues to work both public assistance and individual assistance here in Vermont. We've just passed $20.8 million in individual assistance, and our current estimate before we've completed all the work with AOT and BGS is about $123 million for public assistance, and that's growing. More than likely, it will eclipse Irene, which was over $200 million for public assistance. The deadline for individual assistance applications is October 12th, so just around the corner. We ask that anybody who has had damages from the storm to please apply. We did extend the period another 30 days, so we did some analysis, and from the 13th of September until I think it was 3 days ago when we completed the analysis, 156 people applied for assistance, and of those 156 people, 64% of them were eligible for assistance, and the average award grant was $4,000. So there are still people out there who have had damages, and we asked, anything you can do to help us get the word out to apply for assistance, please do so. We still have 3 disaster recovery centers that are open. We have one in Ludlow, we have one in Barrie, and we have one in Waterbury. We're extending all of them beyond the end of the registration period of October 12th. We're extending Ludlow out, I think it's to the 19th of October, Barrie to the 27th of October, and Waterbury to the 14th of October. And again, the purpose of the disaster recovery centers is really, while you can sign up there, the purpose for those is to go there to receive assistance if you received a determination letter that there is challenges with your application, or you need additional work on it, or documentation. So we wanted to keep those open. For the one that's in Barry, we're moving that. It's currently at the auditorium, and we're moving it to the Community Resource Center on, I think, at the 12th of October is the current date for that. And as the governor said, the immediate needs funding was lifted, so we've been able to start obligations for things other than individual assistance, which is great news for Vermont as we continue to work with all the towns and cities on the public assistance requirements they have. And then lastly, at 2:20 today, I think you're all probably tracking, but we'll all receive a notification on our phones, emergency alerts, a part of the emergency alert system. So it's been well publicized, but just want to use this opportunity to once again ensure people got the word that it's not an emergency, it's just a test of the system. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to the governor and stand by for questions. Thank you. Sir.
Thank you, General Roy. We'll open up to questions at this time.
Wanted to clarify something really quickly. The deadline to apply for individual assistance is going to remain October 12th, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Extending some recovery centers, but that's
Yes,
still
we
right.
are. Yep.
Okay.
And if somebody misses that deadline and there's extenuating circumstances, they have up to 60 days to come forward with a request and the extenuating circumstances where they couldn't apply. Okay.
Can you just describe a little bit the types of people that seem to be coming in here at the last minute, sort of with these smaller sort of requests? Did they not know that they were eligible? Have they just been taking time to process the information?
Unfortunately, we don't capture why you didn't come in because it's kind of intrusive. We just open the doors, say, come on in, whether it's disasterassistance.gov or the 1-800 number, or they come to the DRCs. I'm just glad that over 156 people have come forward, and I'm hoping that anybody who has had challenges applies. I think a lot of times it's words of mouth, right? Somebody applies, and all of a sudden, they get assistance. Say, hey, listen, my basement's flooded, and I didn't think I qualified, but I did, and I got X amount of money. In fact, I had a similar incident when I was in a local gas station. The clerk working there, I said, hey, how'd you fare? They said, oh, we got a little bit of stuff in the basement, but we don't really qualify. I said, well, call us, and you never know. Next time I ran into them, say, hey, we got some clean, and sanitized money. So you never know, right?
And the reason you're keeping the centers open after the application deadline is to help people with their applications.
Yes, sir.
Following that.
That's a great question, because a lot of times people will request assistance, and for instance, they may have insurance. And so they get a determination letter saying, we're unable to provide funding at this time because, and then it'll give a list of why. And it's like, we'll need to see what your insurance is before we can make a determination how much you may be eligible for. So things of that nature. There's a number of different types of letters they'll receive. And the purpose of the disaster recovery centers is to be able to have somebody there you can look eyeball to eyeball with and say, I don't understand this. Can you help me understand? All right, thank you so much.
While you're up there, General Roy, where do we stand with FEMA in the city of Montpelier for the direct housing program and the trailers? And you also mentioned last week there's maybe a potential location in Springfield, I believe is what you said. If you have any updates on that as well.
Sure, absolutely. So for the city of Montpelier, I believe this Friday we're coming together, and I think we'll have the lease signed. We're taking a look at some of the infrastructure. We also were working with them on the footprint as to where it's located. As you may be aware, there are housing plans for the golf course, and what we want to do is we wanted to make sure that we weren't impeding the opportunity for them to continue on with that effort while we're taking care of the folks who needed assistance with the mobile home units. So we now have a footprint. We've drawn out our how we'll lay it out. The city and the state are in concurrence that will work. There are discussions about the size of the piping for water and wastewater that are required for it. But I believe by this Friday, we'll have that resolved. And then we've already laid the contract for the work to be done. So we're hoping that we'll be breaking ground on the infrastructure work in a very short period of time and get people in before hard, cold weather hits. And the location in Springfield area, it's a commercial park, and so there are pads available there. If people are interested right now, we don't seem to have anybody who's interested in going to that specific park.
And when you said cold, hard weather, you mean like January, December? When are you thinking?
We are still shooting for December timeframe. As we all know with construction.
And the number of units or number of people you think?
36s right now is the number we're looking at. The population we started with working with for direct housing was around 54. It's now at 41. As we spoke about before, right? You know, the longer it takes to get things done, people find other type of solutions. So right now we're still looking at 36 units for the golf course, Montpelier area.
Is that 41 statewide?
41 statewide, yes, ma'am. I think it's like five, and then I think it'd be 31, I guess, right?
So, I'm sorry, is it units
Yeah.
or people we're talking about?
I'm sorry, applicants, yes. Washington, so for Washington County is a big number. Thank you, sir. And then the smaller numbers for Memorial and Windsor. Great,
Oh, no.
Thank you so much.
Sorry. I have a question. I'm hoping that you could elaborate a little bit on what you found from the survey of people with damaged or no heating systems. You mentioned you've heard from about half. So I guess how many people do we know right now don't have a functioning heating system?
Yeah, right now, it's about half of the original half. So about, right, 200 and something that don't have heat. So that's the number we're dealing with. We don't know what stage they're in right now. We don't know if they're in contact with the contractor, but we're diving in a little bit deeper to get all that. And that the fuel dealers and Vermont have the same information, so they can help us, assist us in making sure.
Do we have any new information about how well the Efficiency Vermont program is working?
I don't have information on that, but we should probably have Peter walk in at some point when we get the rest of the survey results and see.
A big concern coming out of the storm, will we make sure that everyone has heat before the winter, right? Are you confident that that will be the case? Do you remain concerned?
Yeah, I remain concerned. That's why we put the survey out and trying to get the assistance of fuel dealers and others to make sure that we're putting people in touch with those who are impacted. I felt there was a gap, and just anecdotally, I felt a gap, and so we're trying to bridge that gap now and making sure that. But I mean, it's still doable. It's a concern.
What are you finding are the biggest problems? Just finding people who can do the work, or are people
that I don't know. I mean, we haven't. I haven't gotten into the survey far enough to know whether it's supply chain issues or it's the actual technical support and the actual tradespeople to do the work. So that's why we're trying to analyze that and get the fuel dealers and Efficiency Vermont get their feel as well and their feedback.
So of the original 1,000, about 250 still don't have heat that we know of? Or is it just that that's how many people have like affirmatively said I don't have
Right,
heat?
those are the only ones that have affirmatively said that they don't have heat or complete heat. We don't know what stage they're in either. They may be somebody working on, but that's out of, we have 500, so we have 1,000 we put out, 500 responded, and then half of them said we don't have heat. So we don't know if that's it or whether there's more.
Thank you.
That's why it's really important if you know someone who doesn't have heat, and if they haven't filled out the survey, call our office at that 828-3333.
I can follow up on that. Sure. So, Governor, at the beginning of this, you granted yourself, I think, is apparently the right way to say it, some powers to streamline certain permitting requirements and other things. Have you considered, or do you think it would help to have some sort of expedited ability to repair systems without permits or without anything like that?
We'll do whatever, the emergency order is still in place,
Right.
and we still have the ability to waive whatever restrictions stand in the way of someone getting heat. So if there are restrictions, we will do whatever we have to do to make sure that we alleviate that.
Do you think that might be one of the holdups? I mean, I remember getting someone to look at my heating system, and it involved setbacks and things and lots of complicated sort of engineering. I don't know you would want to waive engineering requirements for safety, but maybe there's something.
Yeah, it would depend on what the issue is. For instance, if it's a if it's somebody that was, if we needed to get more help out of state, for instance, in New York or New Hampshire, and there was licensing requirements or something, we could waive that.
Right.
But certainly not safety. We would want to make sure that we work our way through that to make sure that they were safe.
So
But I can't imagine what that is, to be honest with you.
how hard would it be to waive the licensing requirements for out of state?
Not very hard.
Do you think you'll plan to do that, given what you've said about the severe lack
Well,
of electricians and heating?
Well, we don't know that yet,
Oh.
right? I mean, in some respects, that's why the fuel dealers have said they have enough capacity, they have the people, and that's why we brought them in and share the results with them. Because, and there may be in different parts of the state that aren't interacting with those in Washington County. We're very hard hit, obviously, and so, or Lamoille or others. So we just want to connect them first. We may be okay. We just don't know at this point.
Fuel dealers have said that they have sufficient technicians.
They said they hadn't heard that there was any any short supply in terms of their people, but people in some counties may have not have reached out to them. And
They've been saying for years that there's an acute shortage of people in those fields. So I was
yeah,
surprised
but to
see-
deal with this disaster,
Got it. Thank you.
yeah. Overall, there's still a lack of tradespeople.
Governor, statewide, there's many leaf peepers and tourists that are coming. Fall foliage is popping right now as we speak. Many of these buses are going to be stopping in Montpelier as well. What do you hope that tourists and leaf peepers take away when they see some of the damage in Vermont?
Well, again, there's a lot of places to visit throughout the state that weren't impacted, much like Irene. But I think having some empathy for those who are suffering and going through this is good for people to see. But we are open for business, and we're optimistic that this is going to be a banner year for tourism in some respects. We still have, I don't believe we're peak everywhere in the state, and I think there's still a lot of time left between now and sixth season.
Governor, House Speaker Karinsky last month asked the Climate Council to focus on climate adaptation and resiliency. Has your administration responded to that, and might it force spending less money on emissions reduction?
We haven't responded directly. I think that was in, I think her comments were to the Global Warming Solutions.
Well, the letter was to Administration Secretary Kristen Klauser, head of the VCC.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure they as the council have, I don't know if they've responded or not, but we've talked about it. In fact, they were working on many of those same initiatives. So I think they were going to respond.
Do you have any perspective on the debate over what the steam heat in Burlington, the district heating from the McNeil plant, whether it's a good idea or not from a climate point of view?
I can only give you my point of view. I think it's a great idea. I think it's served Burlington well. I think it's serving Montpelier well, and I think it should be part of our overall, heating programs would heat.
Thank you. Sorry.
For Deputy Commissioner Batesy, we were speaking of debris. I don't know if you'll be able to speak to this at all, but considering we do only have the one landfill in Coventry, I guess, is that where most of the debris was going? Is there any concerns that it can handle it, or are we going to be all right there?
It seems as though we've been all right. We've certainly peaked the crest of the debris. Now, it's not saying that mission accomplished or anything, but they've handled the bulk of what we've thrown at them, and there's no indication that they're pushing back against us. A lot of the debris that we have left now is vegetative debris, and we've been working with a site down in Springfield that is handling all of that and doing all of the grinding and the various things that are necessary to take care of that. So I've had no indications that there's a problem, but we'll keep an eye on it.
You mentioned there's 11 areas, I think you said, that we're still kind of working on. Where are some of the problem areas still geographically?
They're a little bit all over the place. So our original list of, when we reached out to communities, the original list was 353, I believe it was. We've worked through that list down to about 11, but as I said before, it's a dynamic number. We get requests on a regular basis. Yesterday, AOT was in Johnson and took nearly 10 tons of debris out of Johnson, and that was just a coordinated effort by the community there to reach out to homeowners who were still doing some renovations. So those pop up from time to time. So 11 could be 15 tomorrow. It could be 9 tomorrow. But that's about where we are. As I've said to the governor before, it's a little bit like playing whack-a-mole. Every time we sort of get a bunch done, more pops up over on this side. But we'll keep at it.
Got a few folks on the phone. So we'll start with Chris Roy, Newport Daily Express. All right, we'll go to Tom Davis, Compass, Vermont.
Thank you. On a different topic, Governor, the News and Citizen has a story today saying that Snorkel's Notch and Snow or Vail Corporation at this time has postponed any plans to try and build this gondola connecting the two ski areas, mainly because of a lot of opposition from the Agency of Natural Resources. So I wondered if you had a comment on that.
Yeah, I had not heard that, nor do I have all the details and what they were going to do. It sounded like an interesting concept when I first heard about it, but I don't know the area that they were considering, obviously going over the upper elevation, but I didn't know what the route was and what the difficulties were in doing so.
Okay, one other question. Have you noticed, and have you gotten calls from anybody nationally in the media about the latest developments and the opening of the new Beta Technologies manufacturing plant?
Have not. I don't know, Joan, is there anything you've heard? No. No, nothing yet.
Okay, there's been a couple of stories. It's been good to see that. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you. No more questions.
I'm hearing that there may be a big story, maybe on Good Morning America at some point, which will give it more attention.
Excellent, thank you.
Tim McQuiston, Vermont Business Magazine.
Hey, Governor, I wonder if you have a reaction to the draft report that Mike Smith put out on Vermont State University. It's not surprising that they want to do a lot of consolidation, but it's still pretty sweeping, including laying off full-time faculty, I guess up to 30, depending on how it works out. Any reaction to that draft report?
Yeah, I haven't read the draft report at this point, but I'm not surprised. They continue to struggle, but I think there is hope on the horizon. And this is something, the legislature had asked for. There was a lot of money that was put into the Vermont college system, the state university, and but there was also the request by the legislature to reduce the amount of money that was for overhead and to try and get into an area where they could be self-sufficient. So it's no surprise that there's some layoffs. I look at it from a business perspective, and And I look at students like customers, and if I have fewer customers, and to survive, I need to cut my overhead. And I think they have the same situation here. I mean, this is not something that's happened overnight. It's happened over decades now, and they just have to cut their overhead in order to survive. But at the end of the day, what we need to do is bring more people into the state. And I think Beta is a good example of how we're going to be able to do that. But we need more activity, economic relief. We need to make Vermont more affordable, and we need more families to move to Vermont. Because 90% of the students historically at the Vermont college system have been Vermont students. They come from Vermont. So when we have fewer of them, it doesn't take long to come to the conclusion that there are less students available. And so that's been their issue, and they just are trying to come to grips with being self-sufficient.
I know you're looking at this from a distance, but would you be in favor of even closing one of the campuses?
I think that's a decision they have to make on their own. This is they're separate. They're out of our purview in some respects, but I think there's a way to do this in a structured way where you may not have to close a campus, but you're going to have to find other uses for part of your campus that's not being utilized today. So again, I think that they're all contemplating that, and we'll see what happens as a result of this report. Has a long ways to go.
Thank you, Governor.
Keith, the Rutland Herald.
Hi, I was wondering if anyone was aware of the current situation going on in Pollitt with the Slate Ridge and the owner Daniel Bonnier. My understanding is the environmental court had put out an arrest warrant for him. The time period for that arrest warrant expired without him ever being arrested. And I think now the court is saying because this is being appealed to the state Supreme Court, they can't modify the order in any way. I'm just wondering what anybody thinks of this situation, if there's anything else to be done here, if it's just, or what's going on with this. I mean, it looks like the court's authority is kind of being a little undermined here by law enforcement not following through for whatever reason.
I don't have any, I guess I'm not aware of what we could do at this point in time, but we'll certainly look into it. I have heard and read something about the situation, but I'm not sure of the details of that and what is even being asked at this point.
All right, fair enough. Thank you.
Try Chris Roy one more time. All right, back to the room.
Governor, you speaking of Slate Ridge, I believe you signed a bill earlier this year banning paramilitary camps. How do you see that playing into the picture of where we stand with Mr. Bonnier?
Yeah, well, I think his contention is that he doesn't fall under that jurisdiction. He's found another way, or he's at least that's what he's going to. The argument he's going to make to the court, I believe, is that he doesn't fall under that. But I still believe it was the right thing to do.
Governor, so tonight in Stowe, we have a benefit concert where 100% of money is going to recovery efforts, even Oktoberfest later on, and a ton of events like that. So I guess just from your kind of helicopter position as governor, I guess what's it just been like the last few months watching municipalities, organizations come together to help the thousands and thousands of restaurants and businesses that have been affected?
Yeah, well, it's heartwarming to see. And people who weren't affected by the flood directly still feel a sense of camaraderie to those who were across the state. And I think that that's part of the beauty of being here in Vermont, a neighbor helping neighbor, coming to the aid of those who need us at that time. And we've proven it time and time again, whether it's Irene or this July flooding. 23. Um, we still about this more. There are subjects that could use years. I go through in my page, so it just needs some.
Lining up this, look for work. Need to wait. People have for work during COVID.
I'm not sure if a lot of we should find through this. Anyone who is connected instead of going back and open. Extend. Across the board. The answer, maybe surgically, if we can do that. But can we have for those who are unemployed at this point? not to the flood.
Governor and Deputy Commissioner DeGree, Commissioner Eric. We have extended the 10-week return to work date for varieties on a case-by-case basis. And we don't want by a natural disaster. So, the case basis, resisted to fully any into that return from that and we'll work together as well.
Deputy Commissioner DeGree. Call him.
So last week, do we have any new?
Whether the drug is, and then now with the with our flooding has exacerbated the situation. We're trying to get I think those two situations. We just need more resources, and unfortunately, we need more time that we don't have, and we just need to amplify everything.
Burlington Mayor Merle Weinberger has said that the hub and spoke model hasn't been able to keep up with fentanyl and other challenges that have been facing the system. I mean, how do you think hub and spoke is holding?
Yeah. No, I think it is part of the answer. Agree. It's across the country. And we need to go somehow. We'll change the newest one is
rising over doses. There's like Weinberger
us takes resources. We're in a short supply of people, our task force, and so forth. So, and it's across the board. I mean, our health system it's become an issue. It has been for a while. And it's and that work Senator Sanders is taking zero last week. With another senator from Kansas. To try and work on our healthcare system. So I think I'll recognize that we have to confront and there are answers out there, but some of the answers are what we already we see.
So, FEMA's fund has been topped off. That's obviously big, really good money. But, you know, are you still hoping that the federal delegation will be able to get more, right? Either are you hoping for more?
Yes.
What is that like?
Well, it's for major projects like I spoke out in there, for instance, there's a um, on the because I'm not sure that it's either there that will mimic the system of right. They're saying there's a do about together and more city the line page and because I think I think there's that FEMA funding. So need for Congress to utilize some of that aid in the future.
Are you hoping for, I guess, or this kind of a universal?
Yeah, I bigger universe, and you think about how do we prevent the flooding in the future. I've talked about the volume storing the capacity to store more water in the future as part of the answer, and not building right on the river and extend the bank, broadening river banks in order to store more water, flood water. And so all can be done connected together with housing and biogas and so forth. Housing as we sort of stream and our way impacted are critically full.
General offices, we see moving back clear on